found my gloves.
Yeah. That's good.
They're in your bike bag.
They said, well, where are you going to get the money? And I said, I'll go to Patriot Guard. I'm a Patriot Guard member. You're a Patriot Guard member. I think got $100,000. And what they did is, well, if we do it for one, we have to do it for everybody. It's $52,500 just to get up this field. And he told me that we're doing the right thing. Just because I guess just because
Well now, Major General Larry Shellstone, George Lutz, Greg Swan, Ron Kaler, and Ron Mcinnes. Our first speaker is Ron Kaler. Ron Kaler is the proud father of 6 sons and 1 daughter. His 5th son, Specialist Justin Larson, is in his 9th year as a combat medic with 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery, 1st Brigade, 34th Infantry Division. Justin has completed 2 tours of duty with his current battalion, with his most recent deployment to Iraq in 2005. Ron's 2nd son, Sergeant First Class Matthew Kaler, is an airborne ranger with 2nd Battalion, 503rd Infantry Regiment, 173rd Airborne Brigade Combat Team. Matthew served from June of 1997 until he was killed in action in Laghoul, Afghanistan, January 26, 2008. At the time of Matthew's death, he was the 2nd platoon sergeant for Charlie the Chosen Company. This was his 3rd tour of duty to the Middle East. Please welcome Ron Kaler.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here. I'd appreciate it if we could have all of the Gold Star parents and families please stand. Let's give them a hand, everybody. And I'd like all of you to know I'm just so very sorry for your loss. I realized on my way home from work Monday that on July 3rd, 1963, started my journey to be where I am today. And on July 3rd, 1963, I was 11 years old, and my mother was killed in a car accident. When I was 31 years old, my father, at the age of 53, died of a heart attack. Those two events had something similar in common that I'll never forget, and that is, when the funeral was over, everybody was gone and nobody ever came back again. On the 26th of January 2008, Matthew was killed, and when his funeral was over, the same thing happened. This past May, I accepted the challenge of trying to raise enough money so that every family, every Gold Star family in Minnesota would receive one of the Honor and Remember flags. My wife Shelley and I were given one last year by 2 sets of our friends, and it has become very meaningful, and it's something that we want each and every one of you to have, and that's how I became involved in the Honor and Remember flag. My vision is that at some point in the near future, whether it be the 11th of November 2010 or 2011, that on Veterans Day, each and every one of you will be presented with the flag that we've been given. I want you to know that while people may or may not remember our children, I will do everything I can to make sure that your sons and daughters are not forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaler. Our next speaker is Ron Mcinnes. He's a combat veteran of the Vietnam War, where he received 2 Purple Hearts and various other commendations. He's very active in veteran and military issues. Ron is the ride captain for the Wilmer sector of the Minnesota Patriot Guard. He is also a member of the 16th Infantry Regiment Association, where he serves as the vice president, and has also been recognized as a distinguished member. Ron's cousin, Sergeant First Class Lyle Mcinnes, was on a helicopter in South Vietnam when it was shot down by enemy aircraft artillery on April 21st, 1968. Lyle was never returned home. Ron has made it a personal mission that Lyle and others that were killed will remain listed as missing in action and never be forgotten. Please welcome Ron Mcinnes.
Good morning. It is indeed an honor for me today to be here in front of the Minnesota State Capitol and be allowed to address you folks who come so far. My name is Ron Mcinnes. I proudly stand here with my head held high, saying I am a Vietnam veteran. For many years, a lot of Vietnam vets, although not ashamed of their service, were not necessarily proud or going around telling anybody they were Vietnam vets. But that was the way it was then, and today, the way it is today is completely different. And today I can tell you, like I said, I'm proud to be here, my head held high, to tell you that I'm a Vietnam vet, and I'm proud of all of my brothers and sisters who served in Vietnam. Many Vietnam vets, along with other dedicated people who never served in the military, but now find a calling to do what they can to support our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, have come together. You see a lot of them standing here with flags. There's a misconception that Patriot Guard is made up of just veterans. That's not the case. A lot of folks are not veterans, are folks who just, like I say, have felt the call and want to show respect, honor, and dignity to our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. And I'm proud to be involved with the Patriot Guard, and one of the finest groups of people you'll find anywhere in the state of Minnesota. The Honor and Remember flag is and will be forever a symbol of honor, not only for the fallen brothers and sisters, but for all of us who proudly remember those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. My cousin Lyle Mcinnes, Lyle was reported missing in action on April 21st, 1968. The week just prior to that, I received a letter from my friendly local neighborhood draft board requesting my presence to serve. As I remember, the first sentence started out something like, greetings, you have been selected by your friends and neighbors. At that point, I figured it was time to move out of town and make new friends, because some people didn't like me very well. Anyway, I went into service knowing that here my cousin Lyle was missing, and not knowing what fate was in store for me. But I went with the thought in my mind that my father and uncle had served, now Lyle was missing, and I had other cousins who were serving, and I felt it was my duty that I needed to go and do what I had to do, whatever that may be. During Vietnam, this is a figure that's quite staggering to me, there was actually a total of 8,744,000 American men and women served during Vietnam. There were 47,000 battle deaths and over 10,000 deaths from other causes. Today there's over 58,000 names on the wall in Washington, D.C. Lyle was born in September of 1939 reported missing in action on April 21st, 1968. Lyle received the Purple Heart, the Air Medal with 5 Oak Leaf clusters, Vietnam Expeditionary Award, the Vietnam Service Medal, National Defense Ribbon, and other awards. The day he was reported missing, he was on a helicopter with 5 other crew members on a helicopter with a call sign of Positive 5. There have been, over the years, incidences reported of possible sightings and this sort of thing, but nothing has ever been confirmed. To this day, the family still hangs on to that one glimmer of hope that someday, the Vietnam War, I'll just brief on that shortly, basically started in about 1961 with 3,000 people in Vietnam. In December 31st, 1968, we had a total of 536,000 men and women serving in Vietnam. That was the peak of the deployment over there. In 1974, it was drawn down to 50 by President Nixon, and on April 30th of 1975, the Vietnam War ended. For some, for many of us, it will never end, but we will go forward, and we will do whatever we can to make sure that these young men and women who are serving today receive the duty, honor, and respect that they have coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mcinnes. Ladies and gentlemen, the Adjutant General of the State of Minnesota, Major General Larry Shelto.
Ron, George. As you started it, we'll continue it. I'm a Vietnam veteran. And what's special about today, first of all, I want to thank the Patriot Guard, because I think that symbolizes part of your message today. And if we dissect the 2 words that headline this event, let's just break them down briefly. First of all, again, to Gold Star families, God bless you. God bless you. I've had the honor the last 2 years to hold retreats in the state of Minnesota for Gold Star families, and they've gotten stronger each year, and we already have the next one in October scheduled. So if you get an invitation, and if you don't get an invitation, get my card before you leave, because we would want you there, pick up the tab, and send you someplace where you can meet other families and share experiences. It's extremely important. Why? The first word, honor. If you go to my office, the far corner, there'll be a framed plaque with an etching from the wall in Washington, D.C. of Lauren D. Haig. Doug died in Vietnam. He was an elementary classmate of mine, a high school classmate of mine, and a Medal of Honor winner because he gave the ultimate sacrifice. And a fascinating story, courage, leadership, dedication, so forth. It is imperative that we honor. We talk a lot about the Vietnam era and us being forced to stuff it, to keep quiet. Those stories are true. And while we have not that in this environment now, that is not rationalization that we do not need to step forward and honor and respect those who are serving. That's 1.5% of the total population who serve in the military services. That's a heavy load carried by a few, and we must honor them regardless of their service. We say in the Army, nice to Initially, I thought, we don't volunteer for anything. But we do, and we will serve our country once we swear in. The joke is, I only volunteered once. That's when I raised my hand to enlist in the United States Army. After that, where I went, that was the luck of my draw. And so we need to make sure that all service members, those who have passed, those who are still with us, those who have served, thank you for your service. By the way, I'm very, very appreciative of the state of Minnesota because that's become a standard phrase in the public. Thank you for your service. Respect. The respect becomes extremely important. As I tell each and every one of our soldiers that wear this uniform, you will never disgrace this uniform. You will always treat it with the highest amount of respect because that is how you represent this great nation. And they have done it with great honor. The fighting forces that we see overseas now is one of the finest in the history of the world. And they do it, and they do it well. They're well trained, they're well led, and they believe in what they're doing. So I don't know how you close with something like this, but I just want to say to George, traveling all over the country, multiple states, that Johnny Appleseed, as I used the analogy with you earlier, planting seeds in each and every state. I ask all of you, and I see the Veterans, State Department of Veterans Administration here in Paris, that we continue to honor and respect the service of our sons and daughters as they prepare and are guarding this great nation. So God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you, sir. Now Greg Swanholm will read a letter from Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Well, good morning. It's certainly my humble honor to be here with you today. It's an honor to be here with so many of you who have given so much, and to see so many of you who are still here serving on behalf of our veterans and service members past, present, and future. Thank you for being here in the first place. The senator could not be here today. However, I do have a letter from her, and I'd like to read it on her behalf now. Dear Mr. Lutz, thank you for your invitation to join you today. While my schedule prevents me from joining you in person, I would like to take this opportunity to share with you my thoughts and gratitude for our fallen service members and their families. It is critical that we take time to come together to honor the men and women who have served and protected our country. We must wrap our arms around the soldiers who fought to keep our nation safe and embrace the families that supported them. And, of course, we remember those who never came before or came home. The men and women who paid the ultimate price for freedom. These fallen heroes must stay in our hearts, as their memories are held so dearly by those who love them most. It is critical that we recognize and support the Gold Star families whose loved ones have given their lives for their country. For their loss is our loss, and our nation is forever indebted to these brave Americans. This past January, I visited our troops on the ground in Afghanistan. What struck me most about this trip and about my conversations with these brave Americans was their unwavering belief in the work they were doing for our country. It didn't matter how many times they'd been deployed or redeployed. It didn't matter how many Thanksgivings or birthdays or Christmases they'd missed. They never once complained. They never once chose to see their service as an obligation. Instead, they saw it as an honor. This is the essence of patriotism, and I am humbled by this demonstration of selflessness. Just as the troops I visited in Afghanistan never once complained, the men and women who laid down their lives for their country would never have asked to be repaid, only remembered. They would want to know that our troops on the ground today are being looked after. In late May of this year, I had the honor of voting to pass the supplemental appropriations bill, which will ensure that the Americans serving in Iraq and Afghanistan right now have the resources they need to carry out their missions. This bill also included a significant increase in funding to Vietnam veterans who suffer from diseases connected to Agent Orange. We are doing more for our veterans in Congress, but I also believe it is only the beginning. It is only the least we can do for the men and women who have already fought and died to protect what we, as Americans, value above all things, our freedom. Sincerely, Amy Klobuchar, United States Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Swanholm. Ladies and gentlemen, the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Minnesota, Lieutenant Governor Carol Volnau.
Thank you, and I'm just in awe of the people who are here. You are my heroes. I think all my heroes wore flak jackets, and some of you did, and some of you had family members who did, and I appreciate that so much. A few hundred feet from us, carved in the Minnesota-Vietnam Memorial, you can find a brief quote which reads, "We were young, we have died, remember us." The brave souls we remember today understood the dangers to our nation and the evils of the world. Heroically, they had the courage to stand against those dangers and those evils. They had the strength to comfort those who spread and confront those who spread violence and fear. They had the valor to give brightness to those in darkness. As we remember those lives, we can say they made our nation safer and they left behind a better world for our children and grandchildren. They were a precious gift to all of us, and they should not be forgotten. To the families of fallen, we know you bear an unbearable pain in your hearts, but as you grieve, we hope you can take comfort in knowing that Americans are thinking of you and sending you their thoughts and prayers. We respect your grace and courage in the face of intense sorrow, and above all, we rejoice in the heroic sacrifice for our nation. For that our nation and free people everywhere forever owe you a debt of gratitude, and that we need to honor and remember all of those folks, all of those veterans here, whether they're here holding flags or their families of veterans. I can tell you there's not a soldier out there who serves alone. His family serves as well. And many of you have seen that ultimate sacrifice and know it well. So thank you for that sacrifice. And we have to thank God every day that we have brave men and women who are willing to serve to keep this country free and fight the terrorism that's out there and those who would harm us. So thank you so much for all of that. And I will also tell you that the Remember the Flag Day in the state of Minnesota is now. And we have a process in the state to help make that flag, as the POW flag also flies over our state capitol. And the legislature can do that, and anything I can do to support that effort, I would be happy to do, and feel very honored to be able to do that. So with that, I would like to read the proclamation from the governor on Honor and Remember Flag Day in the state of Minnesota. Whereas the state of Minnesota pays tribute to our military service members who made the ultimate sacrifice so that we may enjoy the blessings of freedom and peace, and whereas it's important to remember those who fought and died for our freedom and to express our gratitude and respect to their families, and whereas the Honor and Remember flag is a symbol of recognition for our nation's fallen service members, whereas we pray for peace throughout the world and for the safety of our brave men and women in uniform, who continue to protect our nation and defend our freedom, and whereas we honor our fallen soldiers for their commitment to our country and their legacy of patriotism and sacrifice by giving their lives in the cause of freedom. Those heroes have served and inspired all of Americans. Now therefore I, Tim Pawlenty, Governor of the State of Minnesota, do hereby proclaim that Thursday, July 22nd, 2010, as Honor and Remember Flag Day in the state of Minnesota. And I'd like to present the proclamation to Mr. George Lutz, if he could come forward. And I know what he's done for all of us is to help us remember, not just on Memorial Day, not just on Veterans Day, but every time we cross the street and feel we're safe, every time we worship as we please, every time we go to the schools of our choices. We should remember those who made sure those freedoms were available to us. So, and I know your son Tony paid that sacrifice and made sure all of us had that freedom. So with that, I'd like to present you the proclamation.
Now I'd like to introduce the founder of Honor and Remember, George Lutz.
Wow. What an honor it is to be here and to be in the armory here. This is amazing. I'm truly speechless. I'd like to say thank you to Lieutenant Governor, General, Senator staff for coming together and helping to honor those that deserve to be honored. I want to say something special to Patriot Guard. If I can get through it. The Patriot Guard in the state of Virginia was formed in 2005. Their first mission was to bring my son home. And I thank you for that. I am so proud of that. On December 29th is when Tony lost his life to a sniper's bullet. I found out on the 30th, and the 31st was my birthday. Front page news, my son was always one for theatrics, and I thanked him for the present. But that moment was one of the most devastating moments a parent could ever go through. To hear that knock on the door, and those words, "We regret to inform you," because it rocks your world in a way that you cannot imagine. And the families here in this room know exactly what that moment meant. But what do you do with it? How do you go on? How do you grieve? My first thought was, certainly they were at the wrong house. Or maybe he was just hurt. But no, the inevitable finally sinks in. He wasn't coming home. And so I began a personal search, going through all those processes of grief that we hear about. But one of the things that I realized is that no more memories were going to be made. I'd never hear his voice or see his face. And so I began to gather all the memories I could around me. Any photographs, any videotapes, any emails. I even had 2 handwritten letters from him from boot camp. And he never did write. So I coveted those. But there came a point where there were no more drawers to open and and there were no more closets filled with memories. And so I began to look to his friends, because he was married. He left 2 children. He had a life outside of his parents. And the parents will tell you that when your children become independent, they want to be on their own. They want to make their own way. So I went to his friends and I said, what photographs do you have? What stories can you tell? How can you give me one more day of memory so that I can move on? And that came to an end. And I began to look at his buddies, those that he served with, those that he trained with, those that he was deployed with, because I wanted to know what kind of a soldier he was. I wanted to know how he did his job. And I wanted to hear that other people were proud of him. And that came to an end. Because now, 5 years later, once in a while you'll hear from someone, but it's not very often. I have to digress just for a second, because when I was in Missouri, I was in Nebraska. I was in Missouri. I met Sergeant Major Sackett, who was with my son when he was killed. And I'd never met him before. That touched me. When I got through the end of all that searching for memories, I realized that he was a soldier in the United States Army, and he died for his country. And I wanted to know what this country did to remember him. And as I looked around at the veterans and the military, I realized what a fantastic job they do of remembering, because they're their brothers. They know exactly what it means. And you know why they fight over there? I know we all think it's for our country, but it's for each other. It's to have each other's back and to make sure that they're protected. When you see that statue at Iwo Jima, those 6 guys raising that American flag, they raised that flag for those buddies that couldn't make it up that hill. And I saw the monuments and the street names and the bridges and all of those tributes that our veterans have made and built and fundraised for to honor their brothers. But I thought, what about the public? The general mentioned that 1 to 2% of the population really is serving. What about the general public? How do they remember? And I saw the phrase, support our troops, everywhere. On bumper stickers, on magnets. And I want to tell you honestly, from my heart, after my son died, that bothered me, because he once was a troop, and he didn't apply to that bumper sticker anymore. So where was his tribute, I thought to myself. I kept hearing the words, but I didn't see any action. And I realized something very important. It wasn't anybody's fault. What I realized is that we're programmed. We're mentally programmed to believe that when we will support our troops in the field, but when we lose someone, we're going to remember them on Memorial Day, because that's the day set aside to remember. And that kind of hit me that I never forget. There's not a day that goes by that I forget. And I know my family doesn't forget. And as I speak to these veterans who have lost buddies side by side in Vietnam and in many other conflicts, they don't forget either. So how is it as a country we get to only remember one day a year, and that day is mostly for picnics? And I began to attend the funerals of those fallen after my son, and speak to those families and hear their hearts. And as I spoke to those families, I began to meet other families from past generations, widows from World War II, from Vietnam, mothers from Vietnam, from Grenada, name it. And the two things that I kept hearing over and over as I spoke to these families are, please don't let this have been in vain, and please don't let them be forgotten. And families will tell you that they have to talk about their kids, they have to talk about their husbands constantly, because people forget. People want you to be over it. But I will tell you that this is a different kind of a death. This is a loss of young men and women, educated, highly educated, who could stay in this country and do anything they wanted, have any kind of a career, but they chose to serve. And because of that choice, wrote their name on a blank check that included their life. And they deserve something more than what we've given them. And as I was attending the funerals of those families, I would see the POW flag flying everywhere. And it gave me an inspiration, actually, because I thought, if that honored group of individuals who are missing or captured could have a symbol designated for them, then the fallen need a flag to recognize those lives given from the beginning of our country's history. If you look at all the flags we have in this country, we have flags for everything. Everything. Every state has their own flag. Every branch of the service has their own flag. Every ship in the Navy has their own flag. Every college, high school. We identify ourselves by icons, by symbols and emblems. It's who we are. It's how we collectively come together. But the one emblem in this country, the one reason that we can fly every flag in this country, is because of those lives that were given. And not just those killed in action, but those killed in training, those killed as a result of serving. All of those lives. And so with that void in this country, I felt that something needed to be done. And I'm not the type of person to do it, but I really honestly couldn't find anybody to pick up the challenge. And I tried. And so 2 years ago, by the grace of God, and I believe His blessing, the Honor and Remember flag was first unveiled to the public on May 26, 2008. I know you see the flags on either side of me, but I'm going to hold this flag up because I'm going to explain what it means. The Honor and Remember flag symbolism goes like this. The red field of this flag stands for the sacrifice of blood shed. What better color than American flag red? The white field beneath represents the purity of that sacrifice, because our men and women, each one of them, to a person, went over on a mission. And each one of them said, don't worry, I'll be back. I've got it covered. The blue star in the center goes back to World War I, when a solid blue star was hung on the windows and doors of military families to let everyone know that they had someone in active duty. The gold star overlaying that blue star, again going back to World War I, signified that that life was lost, that that loved one was not coming home. And that's where we get the term Gold Star family, Gold Star mother, Gold Star wife, Gold Star father. The folded flag beneath, we all know, represents a life lost. A single folded flag handed to the family at the memorial of their loved one. This country was built on one folded flag at a time. The flames above it are an eternal reminder that we will never forget. And the words below, we will always honor their sacrifice and remember them specifically by name, because these men and women were not statistics. They were not numbers. They were names. And they had families and friends and those that loved them and those that continue to think about them. Thank you. I want to say one thing just from a perspective for those of you who are not Gold Star families. We want you to thank us. We want to hear from you. Don't stand back and not know what to say. If there's nothing to say, then a hug will do. And they want to hear, if you know any stories about their loved ones, they want to hear about it. No matter how sad that makes them. Birthdays, death days, special days are being remembered by these families as well as every day. So my exhortation is to reach out and hug on these families and let them know that you do remember, and that sacrifice is important. I am on a 50-state mission. This is my 25th state to bring this message of honor and remember across this country, and hopefully to have every state recognize this flag as a state symbol of their fallen. And I thank you for your offer to help, and I will take you up on that. But it's more than just about a flag flying in a breeze. One more symbol, if you will, to be forgotten or ignored. It's about recognizing these lives individually. And it is my honor to be here because that is my heart, is to touch lives. The flag will fly as it's accepted on its own, but to be able to personally be a part of recognizing sacrifice is so vitally important. And as you can see, the flag was designed to be personalized. And today, we're going to have a special presentation. And I want to do that now. I have something for Lieutenant Governor, but I'm going to wait till the end. Can I have the Mcinnes family come up, please, and also the Rundell family. It's over there. And you guys can just stand on either side of me. This is a flag. The Honor and Remember flag is for all generations. And it is important to recognize that regardless of the era of the loss, it never goes away. And when I first designed the flag and spoke to families, my heart specifically was taken back to the Vietnam era, when so many of our warriors came back unappreciated, in the middle of the night, hiding, not able to wear their uniforms. And I thought to myself, as a Gold Star dad, How were those mothers and fathers treated whose sons didn't come home? How were they treated? What kind of respect were they given? Did anybody even care? And it grieved me to think about those generations. And I wanted to make very sure that we would never forget. And that if I could spark that flame in whoever was near me, then that might continue in a tribute such as this. And yes, I'm recognizing 2 families today, but every family is to be recognized and will be recognized. The Honor and Remember flag I have in my hand is folded in a triangular fashion. The reason it's folded this way is because it mirrors that American flag that was handed to the family at the memorial service. But the American flag was meant to stay folded respectfully and reverently forever, never to be unfolded. The Honor and Remember flag was created as a thank you, as gratitude from this country. And it's meant to be unfolded, to be displayed proudly in thanksgiving. And I show you that and ask Lieutenant Governor to read the certificate that goes with it.
This honor and remembrance flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in the memory of Lyle Mcinnes. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember their selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say thank you.
This honor and remembrance flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in memory of Sergeant First Class Gregory B. Rundell. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember their selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say thank you.
As you can see, there are no words. I don't even have any. Girl. families are still up here, I would just like to present the state of Minnesota with a hand-sewn Honor Remember flag. And thank you for what you do to remember fallen in this state. And I pray that this will continue to fly for all those that gave their lives in Minnesota. I'm just going to close with words from John F. Kennedy. And I quote, "A nation reveals itself not only by the men that it produces, but by the men it honors and the men it remembers." God bless you all. Thank you. If there are any legislators in this room and you haven't identified yourself, I have a pledge here that I'd like for you to sign if you'd be willing to, in support of this in the state. Thank you.
Prior to concluding, I want to present a certificate to George Lutz that shows that the Honor and Remember flag was flown on July 22nd, 2010 over the Minnesota State Capitol. Thank you, George, and thank you all for coming today for remembrance of the Honor and Remember and to pay tribute to the soldiers that passed their lives for our great nation. This concludes our ceremony.